Well, thanks for coming on the show, Christy. We're excited to have you here and just kind of share your story and your journey. So, I guess for our audience out there, feel free to share a little bit about yourself and your coaching program and whatnot.
Sure. Yeah. So I began coaching about 6 or 7 years ago, and my initial work into coaching was coaching foster parents because my husband and I had become 10 years ago. We became foster parents, and I created a YouTube channel. Once we started, and I realized how little preparation we really had, I started making YouTube videos to just try to help other foster parents go into it a little bit more aware than we were. And that YouTube channel took off. It's called A Fostered Life, and it took off. And for several years, it was like one of the number one, if not the number one, foster parenting YouTube channel. And I started getting a lot of people emailing me and asking me, for more advice and asking me to tell them more about, to specifically talk to their issues and things that were coming up. So I created a private online coaching group. Well, I was calling it coaching. It was really more mentoring, but and I had people sign up from all over the world, and we met. We met twice a week. I had like a live forum twice a week that people could come on and private, and that is kind of what got me into what I believed to be coaching. But then I had a friend, a longtime friend who is a coach, and he said, I think you would really benefit from getting trained and really pursuing true coaching. And so I did that through International Coaching Federation, got my associate certified coach credential. And 2 years ago, almost, I'm coming up on 2 years, I launched my business, CTK Coaching. And I don't really coach too many foster parents anymore. I do still offer foster parenting coaching pro bono. So when somebody reaches out, I always make time for them, but that's not what I'm doing now with my work. I'm more in the like executive coaching, leadership, um, and entrepreneurs and business owners, CEOs, all of that. So,
Why did you decide to take the focus away from foster parent?
you know, I always had some ethical quandaries around monetizing my experiences as a foster parent. It just felt a little icky to me. Not because I didn't think it was worth that it wasn't worth something to people, but I think because that's such a area of vulnerability, and foster parents feel so lonely. I'm just going to tell you, every single one that I talk to, because most of them don't have other foster parent friends. And so when they reach out to me, I'm one of the first foster parents they develop a relationship with. But I think the reason, that was one reason, but the other reason is we adopted our 5 children. And I think all of us were kind of done being the fostering family. We were ready to just be a family. And the more I focused on that, that's so I do still love talking to foster parents, and I do still love offering support and that sort of thing. But I just didn't want to do it so publicly anymore. Also, as my kids were growing up, having their own social media, my oldest child is, on social media. And I realized, they're all going to watch all these videos. They're going to see so many of these things. Now, it's interesting. My third grader told me this week that she at school found my YouTube channel and
Wow.
screenshotted it. She has a screenshot of me on YouTube, and she told everyone in her class, that's my mom. She talks about foster care. So they have no shame around foster care. They have no, as far as I can tell, but I just kind of wanted to let them put it aside. And plus, I was
Mm.
interested in leadership. I'm interested in so many other things.
Uh,
So, yeah. So I think that's really why I moved on from it.
so tell us about the leadership coaching, executive coaching.
Hmm. Hmm. So I kind of have two streams. The one is my business, which is CTK coaching. And what I do there is really mostly one-on-one with small business owners, entrepreneurs, um, nonprofit executive directors, people who are carrying a lot. And oftentimes they're also carrying a family at home. So they're not all moms. Some of them are grandparents. But they all have in common that they're juggling a lot, often struggling with things like burnout, time management, keeping their priorities straight. And a lot of the folks that I coach come to me, and there's this sense that life is happening to them. that they're kind of always reacting. And what I want to help people do is get to a place of being more proactive, where they identify where they want to be, what they want their priorities to be, where they want to spend their time, and not feel like they're at the mercy of putting out fires and the things that come up. So that's a lot of what I do in my coaching there. And I developed a program called Year by Design. I did it several years ago, just one on one with clients, and it
Hmm.
was such a hit. The next year, I made it a group option, and I did it in a group context, and it was really well received there. And this year, I did it as an online group. I did it with some one on one people, and I did it live in person, and it worked really well in all three of those. Spaces. So I created this year, I created a digital course where I took all the
Yeah.
content from Year by Design, and now it's a digital course. So people can get access to it. It's a lot less expensive than the one-on-one
Hmm.
coaching, but it's all the same substance, like the same content. And then people can do that, and then they can schedule a coaching session with me to just go through what they've come, kind of what they've come up with there. So that's a lot of what I do there. I also run a mastermind. Here, an in-person mastermind with 5 other women in my city here in Roanoke, Virginia, who are all entrepreneurs or solopreneurs. We meet monthly to sharpen one another, and just we have a great time cheering one another on, sharing tips, giving each other feedback. It's awesome. So that's one side of what I do. And then the other side of what I do is I'm on a team of coaches with a company called Leaders Q,
Hmm.
and I joined them earlier this year. And we work with teams of people, and we work specifically with one particular company that is international, and they have us work with their teams at different locations around the country, and in fact internationally. So that's been really interesting, because I'm part of a team coaching teams where one of our group will coach the whole group, and then we each have individuals in the group, and we're trying to help them have healthier
Hmm.
organizations, um, achieve the goals that they're setting. All of them have different goals for why they're coming for coaching. So that's been a really different thing, and I absolutely love it.
And what level are these people at in the organization, or
They're
does it range?
they're owners, operators, they're general managers, and directors, all the way to like team leaders. So we have some team leaders who are young, energetic, and a lot for them. A lot of the work is changing their mindset from being the one given all of the directions to being someone who's now got some delegating authority, and helping them to begin to think like someone who's multiplying leaders. So it's a lot of what we're doing with them. Well, really, with everybody, starts with a lot of mindset shifting, just kind of getting out of the old and into the new to take you to a new level of leadership.
Do you find that maybe the education system is partly involved for creating the mindset of somebody going into the organization and they're just taking
Yeah,
orders, as opposed to,
I
because
do.
what you're doing is trying to tell people, I'm here to help you recognize that you're able to drive decisions and have that growth mindset.
I do. I do. And I would love to know what's behind that question. I'd love to hear more
Yeah.
about that. But yes, I definitely do see that, because I think that we're not, unfortunately, a lot of kids, and I've got 5, right, who are in school and now in college. And that critical thinking, and that thinking like a leader, developing leaders, is it takes a lot of intention, and it doesn't happen naturally if teachers are not intentional about doing it. Now, I see a lot of places where they'll say on their banners, we're raising up leaders.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at, how are you doing that? Because anecdotally, I have a daughter who's 10. She is at her very core a leader. When she was 3 years old in
Hmm.
preschool, her preschool teacher said to me, "Mina's a leader." And I was like, how can you know that about a 3-year-old? But this woman had been teaching preschool for ages.
Hmm.
And sure enough, her leadership, natural leadership bent emerged. And she began to start clubs at school on the playground. And she would have this whole gathering of people around her. And she would come home and tell me, I need to bring this for tomorrow because, my club is meeting. And they put the kibosh on the club. They told her she couldn't do it.
Why? Why?
And
Why
I'm
did
like,
they?
well, I think one day somebody, I'll tell you why. at least in this
Yeah.
case, it was a girls only club. And some boy was been out of shape that he couldn't be in her club. And she's like, well, it's a girls only club. And they're like, you can't have a club if everyone can't be in it. And, no excluding anybody. And she's like, well, we just want to sit under here and talk. They were sitting under the jungle gym. We just want to sit under here and talk about girl things. Nope. Put the kibosh on it. So I said to her, no problem. You tell everybody that you're having your club at home and they're welcome to come over after school. And we have a big house. We're intentional about we want our house to be central. We're walkable from the school.
Uh-huh.
So sure enough, most days of the week, we have my 3 kids who are in elementary school, and then we almost always have some extra kids walking home.
It's a full house.
And I have good relationships with all the moms,
Uh-huh.
and they all know I keep extra snacks and just send them all to our house.
So what do you enjoy most about coaching, and what drove you? What ultimately drove you to coaching, right?
Yeah, I feel like my whole life I've been getting ready for this and I just didn't even know it. I didn't, this is my third act career wise. And I've heard it said that a lot of people often will have like 3 acts in their career. And that's definitely been the case for me.
Close the.
And this is where it suddenly all makes sense, my temperament, the way I'm wired, what I love. But I think really it's about, I love helping people flourish. I love helping people not, I'll see somebody stuck in some pattern or cycle, and whether it's debt or relate like continually relational issues, and or struggling at work, not really being able to find their joy and passion at work, whatever it may be. Life is too short for that, Tony.
Yep, no, I
Life
agree.
is too short. And I think that if I can help someone, now I can't help everybody because you have to be willing
You have to be coachable.
to work with me. You have to be coachable. And I have had folks who weren't, and I've had to, break up with them. And it hasn't always been the best. But, I want to invest in people who are going to come to each coaching session. They did the thing they said they were going to do the last time we talked. They're moving the ball down the field toward their goal. And I love it so much. Are you into the Enneagram?
I've heard of it.
You've heard, okay.
Yeah.
Well, on the Enneagram, for those of you listening who love the Enneagram like I do, I'm a 1 with a 2 wing, and that means that I'm prone to wanting to improve things. They call it a perfectionist, but I like the term reformer.
Okay.
But however you want to call it, I like to help people improve and help myself improve. I'm always reading, the books and listening to the podcasts and all that. So I take a lot of joy out of that. John Maxwell said something that really hit me and has stuck with me, and I've repeated it many, many times before. He says, no one finishes well by accident. And I really believe that, life is so precious. It's such a gift, and it's finite. We all have an expiration date. We don't know when that is. But I really, for years, I have thought I want to live in such a way that if today is my day, if something happens and today is my day, I'm not leaving things unsaid that needed to be said, and I don't have regrets. So I live that way, but I'm also super planning for the future.
Yeah.
And this is where your relationship and mine have come together,
Right.
like where we found each other, is that I'm very much in being faithful to the present moment, but also really planning for the future so that you can finish well if you happen to make it to 70, 80, 90 years old.
And most people
which we all hope we will.
are living to that age,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's living life by design as opposed to
That's right.
having life dictate your options, which is kind of what you're running into with some of these people you're coaching, is they feel that like life is happening to them, when in reality, whether within an organization or not, you still have some control over where you go, right?
That's right. That's right. I'm a big believer in the serenity prayer. I refer to it all the time. And in the serenity prayer, it says, God, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I coach in that center space, the courage to change the things I can. We all have things in our life that are not the way we want them. We all have things that are constraints, or, I have my father is terminally ill right now. That's a big part of what inspires me to really want to live. He has lived a beautiful, wonderful life, and he's he's now showing us what it looks like to finish well. And I want to help other people find that. And so taking into the constraints, maybe you live with
Hmm.
illness, maybe you live with constant pain, maybe you live with, you know, you have a lot of debt and you need to kind of unburden yourself in some way, but what can you change? And that's where I
Hmm.
can work with
And then
people.
what incremental steps can you take to like drive that motion, right? Because it's
Hmm.
really just about
Hmm.
starting.
Yeah,
And we talked about this
it is.
with the planning we're doing. It's you don't have to do this big orchestrated event. It's just the little things that matter,
That's
right?
right. And in every coaching session, I typically will work with people who do a series.
Mm.
So they'll usually sign up for a series of 6 or so sessions. That's a pretty good place to start. And it might be monthly, it might be weekly, it might be bi-weekly, but we begin with a session where we just talk about where do you want to be. The way I kind of frame my coaching is in 3 parts. The beginning part is cultivating awareness. Where are you right now? Let's just get it all on the table. Where are you right now? The second part ends up being clarifying your intentions. Where do you want to
Hmm.
be? Let's get that clear. And then we move right into creating a plan. And the plan, every session ends with something specific that you're going to do that day or the next day. You're going to do it before our next session, and it's going to move you toward where you want to be.
Oh,
It
yeah,
energizes me.
yeah,
I
I
get so
know.
excited about
I
it.
see your excitement. So
Yeah.
what do you see as the what are the top 3 challenges you see that people run into as you're coaching them?
Hmm. Mindset issues. Changing the mindset is the big one. If
Like
people have been living
what's an
for 30,
example?
40, 50 years,
What's an
what's that?
example of mindset? What do you mean?
Yeah, if someone's been living for, say, 60 years with the messaging, the tapes in their head um, that um, you are expected to fix things. You're the fixer in the family. But yeah, if you are the person in your family who has always been told you're the fixer, getting you to the point where you're able to say, actually, I'm not the fixer here anymore. You all are all adults. Everyone has a role to play. Everyone has, something they can do. But that's a huge mindset shift for someone who has been listening to those tapes for a really long time. Or if you're someone who people are just expecting to get things done, yeah, I think another, you asked me about the 3
Hmm.
challenges. I would say that's a big one. Mindset shifts, getting people to let go. I mean, so we're not counselors,
Hmm.
right? I'm not counseling anybody. However, we do spend time talking about what has shaped your thinking on
Hmm.
this now. Like, why do you think it's on you to fix it? Then you get into, oh, you're the oldest of
Yep.
6 kids. Oh, okay, that says something. And we do, I'll do personality assessments
Hmm.
or temperament assessments. I'm big on using the DISC. So a lot of times we'll do the DISC
Hmm.
assessment and then use that to help people understand, where has your natural temperament, because of maybe your childhood experiences or whatever it may be. It often is childhood
Yeah.
experiences. That does come up a lot. Um, but then what about that do you want to keep? And what's working for you? What's serving you? And what isn't, and what do you need to let go of? So that's a big mindset shift. It's hard for people. I think a second thing is when someone just doesn't follow through. So they have we leave with steps of what should happen next, and then they don't do it. So we come back to the next session. They haven't made any motion forward. And so then it's kind of like, okay, if that keeps happening, you have to wonder, is this really working for you right now? Um, and then I think the third thing is people are so busy, and getting people to really discipline themselves. I'm big on white space. I talk about it a lot. Putting white space into your calendar, building in time every day so that you have wiggle room or you have breathing room. And I got that from Greg McEwen. I'm really big on his book, Essentialism.
Essentialism.
I'm going to
Okay.
plug that here.
Yeah.
Essentialism. Yeah. It has really, that I've read it several times. And a lot of my coaching work, especially around Year by Design, is inspired by a lot of the things that he teaches. But he talks about, buffer and the importance of having that. And I call it white space. But just getting people to plan for the unexpected, to plan into your calendar that things are going to come up. And if they don't, have a cup of tea, sit down and relax for a minute. You don't have to be going all the time. So I think, I mean,
Yeah,
that comes back to
yeah.
mindset too. So maybe it's
Like
all, it's all
they're
mindset, but
used to that go life that they don't know anything else, and white space might
right.
be just a waste of time, and they're not doing anything productive. But that white space
Hmm.
is productive
But even,
because you're letting your mind rest.
yeah, it is. It is. I mean, silence is productive, breathing room is productive, but also with me, I use that
Hmm.
white space for my project list or my people list. So I have a workbook that goes along. I should plug that too. Year by Design workbook. It's on Amazon. It's the only one. So if you go Year by Design workbook, it'll be the first one that comes up. But in there is a people list and a
Hmm.
project list where you kind of map out things that, what are the top 10 people you'd like to invest some time in
Hmm.
this year? Um, what are some projects? Whatever it might be. It might be a new website designer. It might be a new mailing list, something. It might be a blog. It might be a
Hmm.
podcast. Or it might be a closet at home that you've been
Right.
looking at for years. And, it just could be anything. And so the white space doesn't have to be sitting around. It could be, you know what, I've got some white space today. I'm going to set a timer for 30 minutes and work on that closet for 30 minutes or work on that website idea that I have for 30 minutes. So it's not, but it's just time that you've built in so that when the unexpected does come, you can
Hmm.
pivot. And that has served me so well. When my dad's had to go to the hospital, I've been able to quickly pivot and not too much has happened and I'm able to be there with him. Or a kid gets sick at school. It happens, right? And somebody has to go get them. And if you've got some white space built in, you can maybe you can push that appointment later in the day, or it just gives you a lot of flexibility. And I think that has been for me a total game changer because I was somebody who was the exact opposite. I packed my schedule. People still think I do. They say to me all the time, "How are you
Uh,
doing everything?" And I'm like, I'm not doing everything. There's a lot
right.
I'm not doing anymore. But I do. I mean, on paper, it sounds like I'm doing a lot. I've got my business, 5 kids, and like every extracurricular you can think of. No, that's not true. They're all limited. But they're all in extracurriculars. And I'm also in grad school right
Wow.
now. I'm in a master's
That's a lot.
program.
That's a lot,
So,
right? So for some folks that are
hmm
listening, it's like they're questioning, how do you manage that? And they might be
hmm
managing one or two things, and that fills up their schedule.
yeah.
So what drove you
hmm
to switch from go to implementing what was the challenge that you encountered that suddenly you're like, this has got to change?
Yep, that's a great question, and I have a clear answer for you because I know exactly what it is. Um, my three things
Hmm.
happened at once in my life. This was several years ago. My dad was diagnosed with cancer. Huge blow because he was the most steady
Hmm.
person in my life, he and my mom. So that was a big blow. Um, and my youngest son was in kindergarten or
Hmm.
first grade, I guess. So, they were all in school all the time. So suddenly I didn't have my little buddy at home with me anymore. And I was suddenly aware of just how fast it all goes. I had this moment of like, where's the time with my dad? Look at my kids
Hmm.
growing up. My oldest is in college. Like, where's the time gone? And I read
Hmm.
Essentialism that year, and it kind of clarified a lot of things for me. I started to follow some of the advice that he puts in that book about really identifying what matters most and letting everything else go. And so that was the year I sat down with a notebook and I folded a piece of paper into thirds and I went through my whole calendar from the previous year. And I made 3 columns, more, less, and same. And I went through my whole calendar and I put everything that was in my calendar on one of those columns. And then I planned my
Hmm.
next year out.
Big shout out and a huge thank you to Zekin for making this happen. They have an amazing platform. Check out their website, zeacon.com, zeacon.com.
And for the next year, I took everything from the more and the same columns and I plugged them in. but I put the more things in first. And I did the whole 12 months. One of the things I noticed when I did that was how little time I spend with my
Mm.
husband. I was seeing all these coffee dates with women at the playground, women at church, even a man who has been a really generous mentor to me. He's wonderful. And I was seeing all these coffee dates with him
Uh,
on the calendar. And I was like, there's hardly anything here
yeah.
that Carl and I are doing. So the first thing I did was I went through and I blocked out lunch every Friday with Carl for the whole year. And we didn't do it every Friday because sometimes he was traveling, sometimes we had something come up, but we did it, I would say at least half of the time, and that was way more than we had the year before. So I think just like getting on paper where your time is going,
Mhm.
taking an inventory, and that's one of the steps in my Year by Design workbook
Is
and
putting it in
digital
the
course,
calendar.
and coaching course. Yeah, doing this audit of the year behind you and recognizing where did you invest your precious real estate of
Time's the most
time.
valuable asset.
Who did you give it to?
Yeah.
It is. And like, who did you give it to? And there were many places where I was like, I could have not done that PTA thing. I love the PTA. I used to be the president of the PTA. And now I do one volunteer thing in the fall and one volunteer thing in the spring and nothing else. So, but I think, in terms of like that whole idea of how do you do it all, I think I have my big rocks.
Mhm.
You've heard this analogy a million times. Like I put my big rocks in and then I just sort of don't put
Yeah.
any more rocks
Whereas
in.
most people put in the
If
tiny
I can help it.
pebbles and then the big rocks try
Hmm.
and get fit in. Yeah.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Or somebody else is putting the pebbles in for you. I used to get the sheet that came home from school with all of the activities that you were supposed to bring your kids to. And I would put them all on the calendar. Oh, we need to go to everything. Now, because I have already put my priorities on the calendar, when they bring that sheet from school, I look through it and I'm like, well, we can do that one because we don't have anything going on that night. We can do that, but nope, we're gonna
Right.
miss that fundraiser because we already have plans.
So that's a good way to manage things, right? And you figure most people
Yeah.
don't spend the time
Yeah.
to really sit down and think, what is my priority? What are the priorities?
That's
It's
right.
just you just live life
Yep.
automatically and get pulled in so many directions.
Exactly. Exactly. And another thing, I keep talking about Greg McEwen, but another thing that he talks about is the art of the graceful no. And that was a huge one for me. Really learning how to gracefully say no and not feel the least bit
Yeah.
bad about it.
So when did you implement that and how did it feel?
A few years ago, I implemented it by stepping down from a position that I held at our church, and that was the beginning for me of recognizing that I I did not want to be in a leadership position at a traditional church anymore because it kept me away from my kids too much. I was the worship leader, so every Sunday I was on stage before everybody got to church, and I was still up there when everyone left. I didn't sit with my kids. I didn't, and one day I was up there, I was doing all of this internal work, and I'm looking out at my sweet family and I'm seeing my kids sitting down, and I wanted them to stand up while we were singing. And I
Right.
kept trying to have them stand up, but
Right.
Carl didn't see him, and he was too busy, singing. And I thought, you know what? I want to be next to my kids in church. I want to be encouraging them to, ask me their questions or whatever. That was a big turning point for me. So I stepped down from that and began to just go, I don't
Mhm.
have to do everything at school. I don't have to do everything at church, and just began saying
Mhm.
no a lot more. Even people saying, hey, I'd love to get together with you, and recognizing I have limited time. I love people, but not being so available for coffee dates. So what I do, we started a neighborhood house church
Okay.
with some other neighbors. And what we do is we have quarterly
Mhm.
potlucks at our house. And that's a chance for us to connect with people. And it kind of allows us to then say no
Mhm.
to other things that we might,
Yeah.
time. I mean, there's certainly people I want to spend time with, but you just can't be all things to all people. And I think that's been a big
And is that
turning
something
point for me.
you share with your clients and the people you help? Is how do you guard your time? And are you guarding your time?
Yes. Yeah. The way I do it is I talk about your calendar as if it is real estate that
Hmm.
you've been entrusted with. And you have a limited number of
Land,
whatever
right?
apartments or houses, land. So get the things that matter most, give them land, give them real estate on your calendar. And then if there's space left and you want to add some of
Hmm.
these other things in, great. But that's the whole thing, is like by getting the most important things mapped out for the whole year. And of course you can
Hmm.
shift things around, it's everything's in pencil or,
Yeah.
on a Google Calendar, you can delete it, move it around. I mean, we pivoted today, right? We were planning
Yeah.
half hour early, we pivoted, no big deal. But I think getting them to recognize that their calendar is their
Hmm.
time. It's finite, and it's so valuable,
Hmm.
and they'll never get it back. And I'm really big, another. So I mentioned that I'm in school. I'm studying chaplaincy, and I'm particularly interested in end of
Hmm.
life chaplaincy, hospice, nursing home.
What
And a
have you
big
learned
part of
so
it
far?
is that I
What have you
really,
learned so far
what's that?
on that topic?
I've learned that when people are at the end of their lives, the things that they regret are not spending more time with their kids, not spending more time with their loved ones, chasing after the golden ring or whatever,
Hmm.
the brass ring. Um, and I think you can have a vibrant, successful
Hmm.
career. I want that. I want to help people get that. I mean, I'm definitely helping people work, more efficiently, lead more effectively. But the whole point of it is to live more joyfully. And if you're not doing it in order to live more joyfully, you're wasting it. And so to be honest with you, Tony, I don't know why I'm so passionate about this. I don't know why. I just really am. And it drives me wanting to meet with people who are also
Hmm.
wanting that.
I think it's
So
also
yeah,
valuable from your experience, right? You know what it's like to fill your time and give it to everybody else. So now you're in this phase of let me control my time, live a more joyful life,
yeah.
and also share that with others that might be
Mhm.
struggling, because it's the same drive you had. You had this drive to help other foster parents because you yourself were in this
Mhm.
space like
That's
I need
right.
help, right? And
That's
so
right.
you learn the tools
Mhm.
to help you cope and get through that. And now you've been given a gift to go share with others. And it's
Yeah.
interesting that you're
That's right.
studying end of life, because I feel like with AI, there's going to be questions that people have, and because most people
That's right.
attach who they are to what they do, right? So
Mhm.
how are you
Yep. There's
walking
going to
through
be a
that
lot
with
of
your
people. Yeah.
clients? Because these are people that work at these corporations that that question's
Mhm.
there. So how are they tackling that?
That's right. Yeah. I think there's going to be a resurgence of interest in what it means to truly be human and what only humans can do. I think we need to use the heck out of AI. I think it's going to make our lives
Hmm.
easier in so many
Yeah.
ways. It already is, obviously. But I think we need to, just like everything else, we need to use it to our advantage, not be
Hmm.
overtaken by it. And so I think a big part of it is really recognizing what is uniquely human and how do we need to bring that into
Hmm.
our business, our, whatever it is that we do. I've worked in corporate, I've worked in nonprofit, I've worked in areas that
Hmm.
felt very dehumanizing. And, but I think that, um, I think we don't need to be afraid of AI, but we need to use it, but also really recognize what's uniquely
Hmm.
human in your field and how can you grow in that area so that you're invaluable in a way that
Hmm.
AI cannot
Right.
threaten you in any way, I guess. Is that
Yeah.
kind of
No,
what you were
I'm
getting
I'm
at?
getting to what your answer is. So I'm not trying to steer anything.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Oh, that's all right. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think that, at the end of the day, well, see, you were asking me about what are some of the things I'm learning in chaplaincy. There's one other thing that hit me. And at the end of the day, I am also um, around people in my chaplaincy work who are alone at end of life. They're in a nursing home
Really?
and no one is visiting them. In fact, our little house church has just adopted a nursing home in our neighborhood, and we're going to start going and visiting people there
So is
because
it
they do not
because
have
their
visitors, and they
family
want them. They're
has
hungry.
left, or what's the dynamic?
It's a lot of different things, but I think, but I think a big one is back to those regrets. They didn't invest in close relationships. And so now when they're, in a place of need, they don't have people showing up for them. And it's pretty sad. It's not that they're not loved. I mean, it could be that
Mhm.
their family lives far away, but I think, there's something about investing in relationships that are going to go the distance with you. And I think that's a big part. I mean, that's why I have in my Year by Design, I emphasize the people list. Who are the people who you want to be intentional about
Mhm.
investing in relationship with? And people don't think about it. They're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I get together with the people who my kids play with. I hang out with their moms while they're playing. Well, does that bring you joy? Are you having fruitful conversations, or is it the same conversation
How's the
every
weather?
time?
How's work?
Because how's the weather?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, how was school? What's going on with the teachers? It's all surfacey. And one of my favorite things is going deep
Mhm.
with the moms I meet on the playground. And I have this way. It's so funny because I was talking with someone about my Clifton strengths recently, and I have this way of
Mhm.
just opening up a room. And I don't know, my boss asks, "What's your superpower?" And I feel like that's my superpower, like opening up a room to go from surface to deep pretty quickly. And I've done that with a lot of the
Mhm.
moms that I've met on the playground. We hang out after school, and you know, it's gone from the surfacey things to, like, one of
Oh.
them came on vacation with us.
Mhm.
She and her son came to the beach with us, and we had the best time over the summer. And another one of them has reached out to want to talk about some things going on in her life, and it's just
Mhm.
investing. It's going deep. It's being willing to be vulnerable. And I usually start by being the one who's vulnerable, and I'll throw out a
Mhm.
vulnerability grenade. And the
Yeah.
people who want to go deep. Now, I'm going to tell you something. This didn't work as well in
So
Seattle.
Seattle freeze is real.
I think Kita talked about the Seattle freeze, and I was like, "Yeah, girl, I definitely know what you're talking about." Because when I lived there for 12 years, but I did. I mean, I did do it there too, but it's a lot
What do you
easier in
think that
Roanoke,
is?
Virginia.
I mean, what would you say is the difference maker? Is it? It can be just the weather.
I mean, no, it's culture. I don't know. I mean, I definitely found my people there, but my people were all East
Oh.
Coasters who had moved to Seattle, or people who had come from, like, one of my best friends in Seattle was a New Yorker, and I'd lived in New York for 12 years, and we found each other, and um, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Are you a native Seattleite
I'm a
or
Pacific
Pacific
Islander.
Northwesterner? Pacific. But did you come
Yeah,
from the
yeah. No, I
Pacific
grew.
Islands, or did
I
you
was
grow
born in
up in
California,
Seattle area?
and then we moved up to Washington.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So that's what I'm getting at. You weren't formed in that Pacific
Yeah.
Northwest freeze culture. um, I can't explain it, but I experienced it everywhere. And my husband tells this hilarious story of when I first moved there. We got married like a couple weeks after I moved to Seattle, and we were setting up house in this little sweet house in West Seattle. And I went around to the neighbors to introduce myself, and he was watching from inside the house because
Yeah.
he just knows me and he knows how it was going to go.
Was he
And he
drinking a
said
cup
he
of
watched
coffee?
this neighbor across the street see me coming, and went in the house and closed the door. But I don't know. I don't know why it is, but I love people.
Yeah.
I genuinely love people, Tony. I just genuinely do. And I know that every person has a story. I think I used to be
Mhm.
more intimidated by people. And now I know everyone has a
Mhm.
story. Everyone has pain. Everyone's experienced grief and loss. Any person you see anywhere could be carrying grief right now. And that, a lot of that too has been stirred up in my chaplaincy work. I took a class, and one of the assignments we had was just to pay attention to strangers, and if someone opened the door for some sort of a
Mhm.
meaningful conversation, to go there. And for me, it happened in the grocery store. And as soon as I opened my eyes to see, I would see someone, maybe an elderly person, trying to reach something on a shelf, and I would
Mhm.
just stop and say, "Hey, can I grab that for you?" Or, somebody in one of those those rolling carts, those motorized carts, trying to get something from, like a high shelf, and just stopping to be available. Like, that's
Yeah.
huge. And who does that? It took me being in a class to have them tell us we had to do it.
Mhm.
And now
And do you
I see it
notice
all the
how
time.
people react after that? I mean,
So
is it generally positive, or they see
they
that, wow,
love
like
it.
somebody's helping, somebody
Absolutely.
cares, if they're alone.
I have not had any negative experience. It has always been, because people love to be seen. And when you stop to help
Mhm.
someone, it's because you've seen them. You've seen. And now, I mean, you need to do it in a
Yeah.
way that still protects their dignity,
Mhm.
especially if it's an older man. Um, and I find humor can be just a wonderfully gentle humor, not, sarcasm, but just gentle humor can be
Mhm.
sometimes self-deprecating humor. Um, can be but if I'm trying to reach something on a high shelf and I can't, I look up and
Yeah.
down the aisle until I find
Uh-huh.
somebody taller than me, whether it's a man or woman. "Hello, you're taller than me. Could
Yeah.
you please come and help me?" And they love it. They love it. People want to help. People love being helpers.
So if
So
we had to, yeah.
yeah,
So
we need
I
more of that.
ask every guest this recently. What's your definition of success?
Finishing joyfully. I mean, you know, um, there's a lot of peace in having financial freedom, for sure. And I'm a huge advocate of living debt free as much as possible. Um, so, I mean, there's practical things I could say, that go along with success. But I would say ultimately, if you get to the end and you're in good relationship with your kids, you're in good relationship with your family, um, and you feel like you
Mhm.
have given your best to this one life that you've been given, that's success. I mean, my faith, I'm a Christian. My faith
Yeah.
talks about storing up treasure in heaven. And I think about that a lot. I think, like, how is this interaction or this action, this what I'm doing with my money, whatever, how is that
Mhm.
honoring that instruction to store up treasure in heaven? I definitely still
Yeah.
also store up treasure in my bank account because I want to be financially free. And you've given me some good advice, and I didn't take it all, and I should have. And I'm still haunted
But
by
is
that.
that,
But anyway,
yeah.
never doubt Tony Sablon's financial advice. I'm just going to say it. But anyway, but yeah, I think just that is success to me. Like, my favorite thing, I'm about to come into my favorite week of the year, which is the week between Christmas and New Year's, because I take that week off. My family, we are
Mhm.
intentionally about being together. We do a puzzle. I bought a new puzzle
Oh
this
wow,
year.
how
It's a
many pieces?
Goonies poster puzzle. And then,
That's a,
it's only like 500, I think. It's not that big, but we're going to finish it. And then we frame it, and
okay.
then we hang it in our television room. And we have, like, the
Oh
puzzles from
wow.
each Christmas. The puzzle is in a frame. And, like, monument, like, creating these, again, a
Mm.
biblical phrase, like Ebenezer's, like these stones that mark beautiful moments in time. um I'm big on pictures. I'm not big on like
Okay.
tchotchkes when we travel. I don't buy a lot of like
Uh,
souvenirs, but I take a ton of pictures and then I usually frame them, you know? So I think that just being able to look around and see a life that I would say a life well lived, that's
mhm.
success. Living generously, loving well, laughing a lot. We're going to watch a
What's
lot
your
of movies
go-to movie?
together that week. We're going to
What's your
eat a lot. We're
what's your
not,
go-to movie for
what's my what?
Christmas?
So we're gonna do
Oh, okay.
the Lord of the Rings this Christmas. We tried it about 3 years ago, and my
Yeah.
three younger kids were just too scared. They couldn't handle it. So we haven't tried it again. So all of them want to
Yeah.
try it again this year, and I think they're going to be able to handle it. My youngest is about to turn 9, and he's seen a
Okay.
lot. He's seen like a bunch of Marvel movies and stuff. So I think he's going to be okay. I think he's
Oh,
going to love it. They
they'll be
love
fine.
all the Indiana Jones movies. They got into Indiana Jones this year. And in fact, my youngest was Indiana Jones for Halloween, which was awesome because when I was a kid, I was into Indiana Jones and all of that. I saw all the Star Wars movies
Oh,
in the
wow.
theater when they first came out. That's how old I am. So yeah, we're into all of that. But we have all that we're going to do. I mean, we love It's a Wonderful Life. We love, you know, 3 versions of A Christmas Carol. We'll watch all of that. So we do a lot of movies, a lot of
Okay.
eating. We also do a lot of like hiking. We get outside every day.
Hmm.
So it's just, again, it's by
Yep.
design. Like I've designed a week around these
The
goals
organization.
of being together.
That's key.
They are because they love it. It's so fun. They just love it. And my daughter just came home today from college, and she's just so excited. She's like, "Let the
Yeah.
Christmas break begin." We do it. We do it well. And then we hit the ground running in January, and then our next big break is really
Yeah.
spring break and then summer. And it's rhythms. It's rhythms of working and
Well,
resting, working
great.
and
Well, thanks
resting.
for sharing
So
your story, and
yeah.
really excited to have you on the show. And where can people find you?
ctkcoaching.com is my home on the web. ctkcoaching.com. And then if you are interested in that workbook, the Year by Design workbook on Amazon, you can just type that in
Well,
and it'll
hey,
pop
Merry
up.
Christmas, and thanks for coming on the show.
Merry Christmas to you. Happy New Year. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Thank you for tuning into the show. If you found value in what our guests shared and what we share on the show, please feel free to share with your friends and family. We'd love to see you back here. Thank you again. And you can find us on pretty much every social media channel, YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify as well. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Step into the unscripted arena.